So, as we approach the end of the week here, let's draw out some of the practical, pastoral, spiritual implications of this teaching on human freedom. So, a first important point that we can take away uh, is that only if we are truly free can we fulfill our vocation to love God and to love our neighbor. So, there is no love without freedom. Otherwise, it's just chemical processes. It's just physical attraction. But love, by definition, requires free will. And so, if God truly has created us with this vocation to love God and neighbor, to give of ourselves in love, it's appropriate that God has given us the freedom to actually achieve, to live into that vocation. So, a second point is that because we are free, we can be held responsible for our actions. This is something that the Catechism emphasizes in paragraphs 1734 and 1735. Um, our freedom is the grounds of our morality and our moral agency. Because we have the freedom to choose good or to choose evil, we can be and are held accountable for the decisions that we make. So another implication for spirituality is the importance of discernment. So we've been saying that human beings really exercise our freedom in concert with God's grace. And so when we talk about discernment, this is a spiritual practice of taking seriously this Christian belief that we are always working with God, never solely by ourselves or never solely determined by God. So discernment is it's a spiritual practice that has been developed particularly well in Ignatian spirituality. So I've given you an example here coming from a website on Ignatian spirituality where they lay out a sort of process for discernment. So you might hold on to this, might prove useful. But as you look through the steps in the discernment process, you'll see there is this combination of, for example, in step number 3, praying for openness to God's will. So very intentionally allowing God into the decision-making process. And yet there are other steps, if you look at the following 4, 5, 6, etc., that are very much active on the part of the human being. So gathering information, weighing the pros and cons, consulting other people. So we are exercising our own freedom, our own responsibility, and yet asking for God's help and grace as well within this process of discernment. And a final point is that, and something that we're going to develop more in future weeks, is that human freedom, for us to be free, it requires God's grace. It requires God's saving help. And it requires an ongoing conversion on our part. It requires us constantly opening ourselves up, allowing God into our lives so that we can be freed from things like bias and sin that limit our freedom. So as I said, we'll develop that more in future weeks. So you have one more discussion to participate in. This will bring us back to our pastoral scenario that I gave you to think about at the beginning of this lesson. So take a little time to think about how all the church's teaching on human freedom and divine grace might bear out or might apply to this particular situation. And then once you've done that, we'll wrap things up with video number 7.